Why we need servlets? In this video we can describe the why we need servlets. Before videos we are describing the J2E. Now we are describing the why we need servlet. Common gateway interface. You know that before inventing the servlets, CG and property APIs. Common gateway interface is a CGI used to allow web servers to process user input and serve dynamic content developed in any script or programming language. Parallel is also most common language. What are the drawbacks in CGI? Performance and scalability. New process is created for each request. And sharing of resources, database connection between scripts, multiple calls to the same script, and repeated execution of the expensive operation, and security. Parallel script uses the shell command to execute OS commands. So this is an example of to send a mail, search for information in a file, leads a way for hackers. Web server vendor develops API. Microsoft, ISAPI, Netscape, NAS API. Problems in these APIs. Vendor dependent APIs. Reliability is one of the problem. APIs typically support C, C++ code execution in the web server processor. Application crashes due to bad pointers or division by 0. It brings to the web server down. What can we do now to develop application? What is the solution? The solution is servlets. That's why we need servlets. Then what is a servlet? A servlet or server-side Java program used for generating dynamic web pages in response to the client request. Example, Yahoo Mail. Ask login detail to the enter our mailbox. It should be verified. Then request goes to the servlet. Servlet are deployed in application server or web server, mainly used in web application development. See, working of a servlet. See, user sending a request through HTML into the network, and it goes to the server. Server responds to the servlet, and servlet is traveling to the network, and it will give to the HTML code to the user. This is the working of servlet. User sending the request and getting the response. Servlet is generating HTML kind of stuff. It easily traversing the network. It request goes to the servlet through network and reach into the server and get response to this servlet, and again it generates the HTML code and come back to the user. What is the advantage of servlet? Efficiency and scalability. Reduce the execution of time. Avoids loading program for every request. Portability. is one kind of advantage. Server and platform independent, able to deploy in any server and work on various operating systems. Written in Java, powerful. Robustness, managed by JVM, no problem of memory leaks of garbage collection. Using HTTP for servlet web application. HTTP is a stateless protocol, can maintain state across many server transactions using cookie and many session management techniques. Then what is the life cycle of servlet? Every component having its own life cycle. Like that, servlet is also having a own life cycle of a servlet. Now we are looking into life cycle of a servlet. All the processes are managed by the container. Web container provides the runtime environment for execution servlet. Java servlet invokes init, service and destroy methods. Working of a servlet, load the servlet class and creates one or more instances. Init is called automatically. Call the service to process the client request. HTTP request is calls do access methods like do get, do post, etc. Send the response to the container and waits for the new request. If the new request is for the same servlet, it creates a thread to process the request. It reloads the servlet. Finally, the container calls destroy before the removal of servlet. This is the life cycle of servlet. The servlet code is executed in init method at once on calling the service method, and request on response is generating, and finally removing the servlets by calling the destroy methods. So lifecycle methods are init, define the initialization information and the statements needed to be executed once. Must be called before servicing any request, called only once in entire life cycle. Can override this method. Use it to read server specific initialization parameters such as performance parameters, database settings, etc. This is sample code of structure of init method. Public void init and servlet config is parameters. This contain information about initialization parameters is stored in servlet config. It's a config object. It's throw the servlet exception. And second lifecycle method is service. It's called whenever a request from the servlet is made. Define the logic that service the client requests. After the processing the request, it sends the response to the client. This is a sample code of service method. It's passing the request and response. It is also throwing a servlet exception and IO exceptions. The request is storing the container information and response is storing the response object back to the client. It will throw the servlet exception and IO exception. And final lifecycle method is destroy. Last method in the lifecycle of servlet. Remove the servlet from the container, can override the destroy method also. Define any cleanup code that release resources such as closing a database connection etc. before removing the servlet from memory. Called only once in the lifecycle of servlet. This is a sample code of destroy method. This is the lifecycle of servlet.